to understand that people from broken homes or broken families need more support at church. So that was, and then when he did get a really good role model, things turned around. So raising up mentors and things like that. But then it also leads to single parents being isolated and lonely. And then there could be a turn for the worst in drugs and alcohol addiction, just to fill that void. And the same with those boys or kids or young people who don't have the significant role models. They can be taken into offending and other behavior.
Wow. There's so much there. So single parents can be isolated, lack of role models or mentors, extra support needed at church. Brilliant. Thank you, Jade, and thanks for being honest. Anyone else have anything that came up in their group?
I think one of the things we were talking about was kind of how Sharon talked about the big three, I guess you could say, of like that we're experiencing, and one of those was like the relationship breakdown, as in like the three things that we're experiencing through our projects, and one of those being the relationship breakdown. And we went on to talk about like how that goes on to impact the mental health of our guests and our members. And then when their mental health is impacted, it's that spiral of them, well, then other things start to drop as they continue in life. So whether that's, using an example, we have one mum who is just honing in and everything's going into her child and everything else is being kind of let go. And then that leads into like financial ramifications, social ramifications. So then it just becomes a spiral effect that we're seeing if we're not kind of catching and, I guess, finding a way to love and support them and connect them in with the right places.
Yeah, thank you, Sophie. I think that mental health point is really interesting because we've obviously had a couple of sessions on mental health with Will Vanderhart, but it's all of these things are sort of interconnected, aren't they? It's really good. Anyone else want to share? Maybe one or two more.
We've seen the impact within domestic violence situations and in regards to social services and court proceedings and just the whole situation basically. One example I used was a lady who's in a refuge, and one of her children has just started school, but then they've applied for housing, and housing has to be near the school, and it's just different avenues, and the lady that we support, as it's already been mentioned, mental health and other challenges in her life, but also just generally meeting those, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, she can't meet that safety need, she can't meet that self-actualization. She's only just meeting those basic needs, and that's probably not for herself, just for the children. So challenges in lots of ways.
No, thank you for sharing that. It's really good. Last one, maybe, before we hear from Tom and Erik. One more issue.
We didn't touch on this, but for us in our context, generational trauma and generational issues are really important. So a lot of our young parents, young adults, and relationship breakdowns much higher in young, just because they've not been parented, they've never seen any modeling, and we touched on that earlier. There's a great big learning piece in that. And we did a lot of work with kids, so sometimes kids come to faith and bring parents in, and they come to faith, and occasionally both parents come to faith, which is remarkable, and then they're together. But then there's a whole piece around how do you make that work, and the desire to make it work might come with knowing Jesus, but then there's a whole piece around how you manage all those things that you never knew, and how so there's a kind of a whole in terms of learning and both discipleship journeying and all that stuff, which we're just kind of beginning to ponder. So I'll stop there.
No, thank you so much, Johannes. I think we touched on that intergenerational point in our groups here as well, so really good one. Okay, so thank you for your participation there. I'm going to hand over to Tom, who will introduce Erik.
Yeah, thank you so much. Lovely to see you all. Happy post-Easter. Great to be back in again. Summer's coming. A bit more winter probably as well. It's lovely to Eric, to have Eric with us. Can I just say, there's the second question in your set was what question do you come to this forum with? So just do use the chat. If there's a particular thing that you just like to dig into, or if you've got questions, we'll hopefully have some time for Q&A later. So please just pop it in there, and then that will help all of us and probably encourage others and get our minds thinking as we leave off each other. But it's wonderful, Eric, again, to have you here. Thank you very much. So just to ease us in, Eric, that Erik Castenskiold doesn't sound like a very English name. Just before we get into the subject matter, just say something a bit about yourself and where you're from and what you do when you're not doing Restored Lives type stuff.
So yes, it was so nice to be with you all. Privileged to join you all. So yeah, I'm Danish by origin. Both my parents are Danish. I've actually never lived permanently, or I've been at school in Denmark. I was born in Singapore and then lived over here. So my Danish accent's gone. But and then work-wise, I'm a chartered accountant by training. I worked at Deloitte's for 10 years. I got involved in lots of different things: Lloyd's of London, corporate finance, buying and selling of businesses. One thing I did, worked for a pub company. I had 2,000 pubs. Worked for Mitchells and Butlers, and I was the communications director there. Did government lobbying for the beer and pub industry. But actually, one fact that is much more interesting is that Tom and I have known each other more over the last couple of years. But about 25, 30 years ago, we found ourselves with a mutual friend, and we were in the sea swimming, and there was a dolphin that came and swam with us both, just the two of us, no one else, dolphin and us. Yeah, I can still remember it vividly. So anyway, great to be with you, Tom.
Happy moment, Eric. Thank you for taking us back there. That was in South Africa. Very good. Well, just Eric, thank you. And relationship breakdown and restoring lives afterwards is in the name. It's a huge part of your focus and passion and heart. I know that from just chatting to you. Even though you've got a main job which you're very committed to do, I know this is actually the thing you're most passionate about, and I know that springs out of your own experience. We just share a bit about what happened to you. I think probably in your 20s.
So yeah, I've been a Christian probably since I was 13, and then went to university. At university, got involved in Christians in Sport and loved it, and met a lady called Karen there, and we connected very quickly, and we dated for about 5 years. And we got married. We were both active at church at HTB. We came and did lots of things, alpha and marriage prep and marriage courses and all that sort of stuff a long time ago. And then one day, about 5 years into our marriage, she turned to me. It was a Sunday. I still remember the day, the time, the sunshine coming through the windows. I remember the smell of the room. And she turned to me in bed and said that she was having an affair. And as those words sort of hit me, my life, my sort of foundation of my life just got shifted, moved. It turned out that she'd been having an affair for 6 months without me or any of our friends knowing. The short story is that through that period, I was lost in body, mind, and spirit. There was nothing, what was real, what was history was real, what was going to happen. And as events unfolded, I realized that we weren't going to be able to get back together again. And we separated and ultimately divorced. I went through huge pain, anguish, depression. I drank too much. I was lost in lots of different ways. And there were probably 4 people at that time who were, I still call them my lifesavers, one of them put me up in the house. I had to move out of home. One of them kept in touch with me regularly on an ongoing, he was a church leader, and he kept in touch with me. But these 4 people were fundamental to me just getting through that period. And fast forward, we got separated, divorced. I'd started to put my life together again. I came on what was a sort of precursor to the Restored Lives course, and that helped me in different ways. But I found my feet, I found my place again, and I've got remarried. I've now been married for about 25 years. I've got 3 kids. But what happened in that time was that I didn't want to help anyone. I was trying to sort out my own life. And then in the end, a guy was running a teaching a series of teaching talks at HDB, said, "Do you want to help?" And so I said I'd help for 6 months. But in helping others, I saw the transformation that can happen in someone's life, going from not just what I'd done, even worse things than I've been through, and start to put people's lives together. And to be brutally honest, I've become addicted. I've that sort of help has been such a blessing to me that I love it now, and I keep going back and trying to help people in whatever way I can. So yeah, so I suppose that's why I've got the passion for it, and why I'm here now.
I know you've supported many couples. I mean, how many couples have you, or people have you worked with? Not couples so much, but people who've sort of out the other side, as you know, out of broken relationships. How many have you worked with?
Well, we've probably now supported over 3,000 adults going through that, as well as children. But in a way, my passion is on relationships, and I've helped people going through relationship breakdown, and some of those go back together again. But you know, it's probably from what I do is about 1 in 10 actually go back in. But actually, what you deal in that grey zone of crisis, and you don't know what's going to happen, but you help people, and so yeah, we've helped thousands of people.
And what just if you were to just expand a bit on your own experience, but also those you've seen, what are the key markers, the key impacts that you see relationship breakdown has on people? Why does it matter so much for, you know, the parties involved? I mean, let me just say that, because in the popular narrative, it's like, oh, it's a bit of a shame. We'll come on and talk about kids later. But I'm just, you know, people say it's a bit of a shame, but you can get over it. But what is that right? I mean, I think we probably all say you can to a certain extent get over it. I mean, but what are the key impacts? Why does it matter?
And I think Gwyneth Paltrow could sort of, you know, uncouple with dignity, but I just don't think that happens in normal life. And I think you've all said it. You know, what I characterize it is, it's like a Category 5 hurricane going through someone's life. And that's just in physical, mental, and emotional and spiritual impact, not just on their life, on the children, on their parents, their friendship group, their communities around them. And that's why it's so divisive. I think we were talking about it in leadership teams at work. I get people at work. I'm finance director for a flooring business. You know, that people are coming to me and they can't work, let alone do their lives at home. And I felt the same, you know, and it's widespread. We reckon about 1 in 10 adults in the UK are either affected directly, or you have a friend, or your parent, or someone around you is affected by that. And that's emotional impact, financial strain. How can you cope with 2 houses when you can't even cope with 1 house and a family? You know, health problems, both in mental as well as physical. It helps, you know, impacts physical. Your social relationships get turned upside down. There's a parting of ways of friendship groups. One people go on one side, one people go on the other, and you're lost in the middle. Long-term plans go out the window. Retirement plans could be scuppered. You know, having a baby. I was going to have a baby with this person. No. You know, being a grandparent, you don't get to see the grandchildren. You know, I'd love to see them. And then there's all the religious stigma. You know, sadly, churches have not always had a great history on that, and there's a vacuum of teaching, leadership, guidance, you know, in spiritual stuff, and all that just breeds isolation for someone who's going through it. It just breeds isolation, and for me, it's actually strategically for churches, and for, you know, me helping them, but for churches generally, it's a strategic place in someone's life, a fork in the road. It's a bit like the parable of the Good Samaritan. You know, do you help this person or do you not? And in 3 years' time, when they're up and running, will they listen effectively to Good Samaritan? Would he have listened to the church leaders, or would he have listened to the Samaritan? And it's obvious that he would listen to the Samaritan, do anything for that Samaritan. He was that lifesaver for them. And my hope and prayer is that the church, because you all have the tools, can become that lifesaver such that they will get integrated into the church. They will come on Alpha. They will be part of it in a community that can give grace and support.
Thank you. I was just listening to you said in the beginning. I mean, for many of the social challenges that we're dealing with, and I'm sure everyone on this call could add to the list, but I can think of my own experience: people who've ended up homeless because of the breakdown in relationships. So they have nowhere to go other than on the streets, and how quickly deteriorate. But if we don't deal with those issues that you're talking about behind the scenes, how how far are we really helping them? So it's making overt what might otherwise be covert. People in debt, as you talked about that, the financial impact of it is massive. So we go add on, and one of the areas is children, as has been mentioned earlier. And I know this is very close to your heart. Just say again, we don't hear a lot about this. I think Erik, I've heard you say to me, and I think it's true. The sort of assumption on impact of parents breakdown in parents' relationship on kids is, it's unfortunate, but actually the kids are probably better off at the end of the day when and it's better for them to be in a happy home than in a kind of unhappy home, etc. And how far is that true?
There's a lot of that. I now call masking. I've got kids, and if someone asks me about my kids, I'll say, yeah, they're fine. And of course, if you really get to know them, they're not. They've got issues. But when you're in a relationship breakdown, it's even harder. And you will say kids are resilient, but they learn resilience, and they need to learn resilience in a safe space. The analogy I have is for children, it's like a car crash. The parents are driving the vehicle, the car's crashed, and they will be moving separate directions and trying to find a car of their own now to move forwards in life, and telling the kids, look, it's going to be better in the future. Come in my car or whatever. And there are two kids in the back of that car that basically are impacted by a massive crisis, a traumatic event. And there's no voice for them. They can't articulate that issue, and there's no help for them. And so, as you all know, that when trauma is not dealt with and kept silent, it amplifies itself and causes way more problems in the future. And so now the statistics are here in the UK. Well, marriage is becoming much later, and that's all because children are not trusting those long-term relationships, those committed relationships. And the stats are pretty horrendous. Basically, family breakdown is now the single most impacting factor for teenage mental health. The single most impacting factor. And also, basically, for all half the children under the age of 15, they are not living with their original parents, their biological parents. So it's impacting half the children's population, and it doesn't just last in childhood. This lasts forever. If you've got separated parents, you will know having Christmas or dealing with the issues in step parents is multiplied. So and it affects children. Let's just keep the children in the poor academic performance, worse mental health. You've already talked about it. More playing up prison offenders, and sadly, children of separated parents are 2 or 3 times more likely to divorce themselves. It accelerates the pattern of undermining marriage and undermining long-term relationships. So it's sadly, and this is one of my things, just to make it an issue. And actually, I'd love if we've got, can we, because sometimes we don't hear from the children. And I'm an old person, so I don't. Rachel, we've got a little video of 2 minutes just to hear from the children of what their impact is.
I'm just making sure you can hear it. Let me know if you can hear it.
I'm not very good at talking to people about my emotions in general. But I think looking back, that was probably the worst thing to do because you just bury them.
For a while, yeah, it was anger, frustration, and kind of maybe more of a bleak outlook on life than maybe you should have at that age.
My mental health was really bad to the point where I didn't really want to live anymore. I didn't really understand what my point was, because I just saw so much brokenness around me.
I thought it was my job to protect my younger brother from everything that was going on. And it was also my job to make sure that my parents got along. In my mind, I was the only glue keeping me and my brother together and keeping my parents from attacking each other. So whenever that broke down, it really felt like it was my fault.
The reality of the situation and how bad it's got, you have to see it played out. I think that's the hardest thing, seeing it played out, but no one's backing down.
If I'm like my father in a particular type of way, let's say I do something selfish, right? And that selfish behavior reminds my mother, my father, I would start to feel like there was elements about me that my mother didn't like, right?
I remember when the divorce happened, one of the hardest things I felt was that my voice wasn't heard. As a kid, I didn't want my parents to get divorced, and I felt my feelings were ignored. So to come to your direction and to feel that my voice was heard and validated was life-changing.
Thank you, Rachel. And so I suppose I see this silent group of silent generation. There's no voice generally for them to articulate it, to talk to. And so what I'm passionate about is churches have got all the community support, help, the resource, the love, the listening. You guys will know that listening to people is probably 50% of the ability to help and heal someone and to journey with them. There are so many tools and skills that the churches have, and so
Eric, take us. Thank you. So just take a bit of time, because you got here a group of people you've already heard very involved in their communities, already deep, a lot of experience helping people, chosen to come to this session because they recognize the relevance of it. What just in your experience, what tools have we got? What opportunities are there to help people? What is needed to help people well? What is the if we want to just be more effective in this space, what are the sorts of things that we need to attend to, and how can we do that?
So I think there's probably things that for the whole, let's say, congregation, everyone, and for people in your counselling, food banks everywhere, that is generic, which is probably around listening, about giving space to people to allow them to express their feelings and not be shocked, to don't problem solve and probably empower them to find their own answers, not to be judgmental, to be totally confidential, and to journey with them. And those are things that we can, I know that you are all amazing at. I suppose for a leadership team, then it's divorce and separation is complex. It's for adults. Let's start with them. And so empowering a group of people within your network to become, I suppose, empower them to be a source of expertise and support would be amazing. That for them to know the resources to go to. Yes, you probably do, but you've got a list of 50 things that you do, and there are people who've gone through relationship breakdown who probably would be delighted to help. Just share their passion and their compassion in that. There's other things around that, which is, training, prayer teams not to pray for reconciliation automatically, which is a sort of, some churches may go to, but more broadly, what the teaching aspects. What are the nitty-gritty things that help people go from crisis to be able to stand on their own 2 feet? It's all around expressing their feelings, communications with themselves and communication with others, healthy boundaries, conflict resolution, acceptance, forgiveness, and finding their own values, their own safe space to be able to move on. But those are tools and skills that you're probably preaching and doing constantly. Open brackets, if you're preaching on forgiveness, don't just leave it as forgiveness, preach on healthy boundaries as well. For someone who's in an abused relationship, it's toxic to say just forgive and go back. But I think you guys are all on the street level. That these things are a balanced, thing that of support. Obviously there are spiritual questions, but those sort of, often come secondary. It's the practical reality of things, which are the things that you and I are dealing with. And so I had a guy, Michael, who got to know over the last few weeks. He got involved because he was in a men's group and he said he was in a bad place. A guy called Ray came alongside him and he found out that he was, depressed and suicidal. And he was in a desperate place over Christmas. Christmas is a dreadful time. But Ray stood by him for a bit. And then he came on the Restored Lives course. And I talked to him a few weeks ago and he's not fixed, he's not sorted, but he was able to sort of stand and say, I can now get on. And that hope is real. That sort of, but that, like, you need a lifesaver at the beginning. You need a Ray to be able to pick these people up and just journey with them. And that's that's a real thing that we can do for adults, I suppose.
Thank you, Erik. I'm going to open it up to Q&A in just a moment. So just to give an opportunity, I'd love you to ask the questions that you would, be helpful for you. But it may be worth putting by context. We always invite people on to not so much promote their organisations as to share their knowledge and skills. Although obviously, if people want to follow up afterwards, then we wouldn't invite anybody unless we thought they had brilliant resources. So. But that's for you to pick up if you want to. Having said that, I think it might be quite helpful because we've got Restored Lives in your direction. Will you just sort of give a headline sense, because before people ask their questions, just what they're both addressing?
No, it's a good question. I haven't explained it. So Restored Lives is an overall charity. We got set up within HTB, but we're now a separate charity. Restored Lives course is an 8-week course that helps adults long-term relationship breakdown or divorce. And alongside that, we've got lots of things, which is resources. You got books to give people. You got lots of resources, and then we have it's for people of faith or no faith, so you can invite your neighbour without anything. But we have sections to talk about faith, optional sections, faith, abuse, men's. So there's a sort of package of resources there for adults. And church, we've got about 25 churches running it around the country, or there's a central online course, which sometimes people come on and leaders can come on and run a group. We had about 60 people in the last online course that we had. Your direction is for 12 to 30-year-olds who have been impacted by their parents' separation. So for the children, and we do it in 12 to 18s and 18 to 32 groups, all online. And we're again, it's a resource that you could run it in your church, or you can come on and help us in the online environment. We've got community groups. We're running it at HTB in the youth program to help children express their issues, and the package for all these things, the core point, that maybe it's a really good thing for you to take away, is that the tools and skills that help someone, either a child or an adult, get through their crisis are relationship skills. It's understanding your feelings, communication, conflict resolution, problem solving, it's acceptance, forgiveness. All those are what they need in the crisis to help them with their difficult parent who's whatever is going off on one. And it's their being able to communicate and problem solve with their parents. So even for a child or an adult, these are just relationship skills. So and I didn't realize this until afterwards, is that people coming off the course are better at relationships afterwards. they're more confident in their relationships. They're able to have more trust in marriage. And we've got a lady, a girl called Abby, 26-year-old, who did the Your Direction course. She used to call herself the 3-dater. And I said to her, what? Why did you call yourself the 3-dater? And she said it was because she'd just go on 3 dates with someone and ditch them because she didn't have any trust. She couldn't trust anyone. After the course, I talked to her about 3 months later, and she said, I've got a relationship. But it's because you're learning about relationships, and then you can break through the trust and the abandonment issues or whatever it is and build your own relationships. And so that's the hope and the excitement that we're trying to build.
Thank you. That's actually really helpful to hear that, because I think that's one of my thoughts, is just it's encouragement for all of us to be thinking about how we bring that in. And also in some churches, I think that bit sits separate to the social transformation work. We're funny old things churches, aren't we? So we position them in different places, but actually how this is a skill set and a skill set to understand yourself, communicate well, to deal with conflicts and so forth. We might even use in different settings, but are we helping people think about it in terms of their relationships, which is so fundamental, important, parenting, adult relationships, and so forth. So let's just pause there. So what questions are on your heart and mind? Have a think. I'll Sharon, let me come to you, and any question from you or reflection on this so far?
Yeah, I think it's a massive. I think it's a massive issue for church, and I think churches can play a wonderful, huge role in supporting people. I suppose it's. I was interested to hear about the children's course. Is that something that's kind of being picked up and run by youth teams, young adult teams? How is that kind of working practically in church settings?
So, the backstory is we've trialed this for 4 years with Spurgeon's, a children's charity, and we're now sort of rolling it out. So we've got HTB youth who are doing it on a face-to-face basis, and we're doing that within the youth program. It's on a Thursday night. And we're literally, just starting that up and seeing how that's going to roll. I've got a school headmaster in Gosport who is running it through in their community hub, face to face again, and so that's a sort of alongside a school. And we're just encouraging as many people as we can now to pick it up and run with it and see how it fits within them. We have an online version which runs every Wednesday night. The 2 courses, 12 to 18s, and so anyone can sign up to that. It's free. It's a free resource. So let's say anyone in Kingsgate could sign up now and just join. And it will. I can't remember the start date. I should know. Sorry, apologies. End of April, I think, or May sometime. The next one comes. All you need is a separate computer or a safe space that you can listen to, and anyone from like 12 to 18, but also older, 18 to 30s is hugely impactful.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Just while we've got Erik here to pick on his experience. Yeah, Tracy.
I was just interested in you talking about the tools that churches have for, the kind of the acute time of the breakup and how we can support people through that. But I wondered if you could talk a bit about, a lot of the context that we're in, there are quite a lot of fragmented families, quite a lot of single parent families, quite a lot of the families, there are different parents for the children. So relationship breakdown is obviously quite a significant part of their lives. As this kind of longer term process, I was really interested in what you were saying, Jade, too, about mentoring and things. What sort of, could you just talk us through some of the tools that churches might have to help people in that longer term support?
That's a great question, and it's a massive question, as Jade pointed out as well. It's and it's a lifetime question. That's a skill and a tool, I think, which it happens 20 years after your parents, like you said, the step parents and all these other relationships. we're trying to build community in our group. So typically I find that people who have gone through the same thing are open and are vulnerable with other people who've gone through the same thing. So it's building up that interaction. Now that doesn't exclude, you all are brilliant experts that you can come alongside people, but and you could open them up as well. So it's building up the like-mindedness, and either in people who've gone through it before, or who are existing to go through it, and building up a scene. And people are going through life stages at different times. So someone who's in it now, in 5-10 years time, is sort of through, and they sometimes forget about it. So it's sort of plugging people into that group, that scene, and being able to harness that and keep that. It's a flow, a flowing stream. Now, unless there is a protective envelope for people to feel okay to express themselves in those environments, in church, I suppose, in from the front, in from the sides, in from all the other, then it's a hard thing to build in a church. But once you have that envelope from a leadership or from the front, that you can talk about these issues and not be shamed, not feel guilty, have a divorcee up, have a child of divorce, or whatever it is, and you'll be more inventive than me. That's where grace abounds, and that's where that home can dwell, that people can heal properly. So I sorry, Tracy, I haven't got exact answers, but I don't know, gives you a flavour.
No, I appreciate it. It's a massive question. Thanks so much.
Johannes.
Well, the first was an observation, which was I was deeply challenged by your comment about concentrating on the relevance of your preaching and practical application. I love that, and that was great. So thank you. The second, my questions really were, in our context, there are two challenging issues, I think, for our relationship breakdowns. The first is that sometimes they're overlaid with questions of sexual identity. So, partners deciding that they're a different sex and then leaving, and then the kids getting traumatized by that, as well as, mum became a man, so now she won't love me as a mum would because she's now a bloke. And that's really hard for me. And how does that impact my kids? And the second was that we speak 37 languages. And so for some of the relationship issues that we struggle with, there's a huge cultural overlay and cultural expectation, and just nuancing that in those spaces. And is there a toolkit that you have for that within the framework of the things that you offer? Because this is very exciting for us.
And can I just say before you answer that, Erik, just take a bit of pressure for you. There might be other, even where you don't, because there are maybe other resources out there. So it's also a question to others if people know of other ones as well. Because I know you're not holding yourself out here as having the full suite of everything. But but go for it nonetheless. You might have this covered. I don't know.
What? Well, not for 37 languages or whatever. Not yet. At the heart of and those are big issues that you talked about, but the heart of both the adults course and the children's course is an openness to reveal whatever issue they may have. And it is, the last course, probably about 50 different types of issues of different guises of different, and, yes, the sexuality things may be the issue. But, I could list you another 50 sort of different ones. Now, and that's fine. Let's tackle them as they come. Actually, I'm not going to tackle them. You're going to tackle them. We're going to give you a space somewhere that you can open up about what is the issue that you've probably never expressed. So that's a safe space for you to start it. And then we're going to give you the tools and skills to deal with it. Okay, communication, you talk about it, or you listen, let's talk about that. The boundaries, so all we are doing is giving them tools and skills to empower them to resolve their own issue. And if it's gender, I haven't got the matrix, or I could go on ChatGPT and get you sort of 10 points. But the important thing is not that. It's more for us to empower them to get their own answer and to journey with them, with their parents, because it's about interaction with their parents. When did this happen? Why did it happen? Are you really, all that stuff is part of the healing. And that's that's the structure of the sort of, I suppose, the courses that we've created, and it's empowering them, and that's so yeah, Tom, I haven't got the answers, you're right, but we got a structure, and that will help you hopefully.
It's great. It's a principles course, not specific issues. I love that.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Jade. I think that's go for it now. Just how we're doing for time after that. We might have time for one more. So if there's one more, just give me make sure I give me a wave or something. I'll catch your eye afterwards. But Jade, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
Okay, yeah. The question is going back to the mentoring thing, because I think people need somebody to journey with them. That's what we offer as a church. That's what, you know, other organizations can't really offer unless you pay them. So I think the idea of the biblical concept of eldership and those with life experience coming alongside younger people, women and men, I think it's how would we train up a workforce? Like, I mean, does it involve doing the courses? Like, I've tried to do as many courses as I can, the bereavement course and this and that. Does it involve actually doing them so you understand what it is, so you can sell that course to others? Or does it, you know, how do people train up to because there are lots of people in our churches that have time, you know, even if it involves once a month or once a term, meeting up with someone for lunch or sitting down over the Zoom and having a conversation. I mean, I personally was invited to be a mentor to a few people, but one girl, she was up in Scotland, just doing her studying for as a lawyer, and she just really appreciated once a term or even more, 6 weeks, just sitting and talking, you know, and offloading, because her family breakdown was at home and there were problems at home. So just an independent person to offload to. But how do we train people up?
So it's a really good question, and I'm pleased you brought me back to that, because what I would encourage people to do is, mentoring, if you can, is brilliant, and you know, literally that sort of thing. I know so and so, pass them on to, you know, Ray in my, you know, Michael's instance. But it's sometimes a little bit onerous on the mentor to have too many. So I can only speak from my experience, which is that the courses that we run are in groups. You're in a group of, you know, whatever it is, 6 to 8. I've copied Alpha. You know, it's an Alpha group, and the same with Your Direction. Little group of 6 to 8. They bond, they connect, and that is the fellowship that's ongoing. So we've had people on the, you know, Restored Lives, adults. They connect for a lifetime. Your Direction, we're building that, and we're hoping. But just like Alpha, you take the people who have enjoyed it and you bring them back in as leaders, helpers, and that's a sort of self-fulfilling journey of them growing up and becoming leaders. And that's a healthy stream, a flow where you can cope, rather than you, Jade, being brilliant and, you know, helping so and so. Actually, what you're doing is farming it out, empowering others to take up that mantle and to be your future mentors, which is, you know, so it is just like Alpha, that type of scenario. Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, look, we're coming into land. I don't think I saw, wave me if I've missed anything, but I don't think I saw another pressing question, which is probably helpful time-wise. So first of all, can we just say a huge thank you, Erik, for coming and just sharing with us, and thank you for the leadership that you're giving, and thank you for raising this really important issue with us. And I know that you would be available to anybody who'd like to follow up with you. What is the best way to follow up with you if they'd like to? Probably through the team.
Yeah, go through the team, through my email. Restoredlives.org is the website, and you'll see lots of more info there.
Yeah. And I'd just like to encourage us all to be continuing to think about this, whatever presenting issues, you know, you're dealing with in your local community, you know, just be thinking through the relational ones. And is there something in that which is really important to be addressing? And if so, how can you do that well? I think it'd be lovely just to close with prayer. Tracy, might you pray for us all?
I can unmute, yes, definitely. Dear Lord Jesus, we just thank you for this chance to hear about the amazing work that is going on, just helping people develop relationships and just yeah, just find their footing. Lord, we just, as we look at all these different issues, we just want to serve you. We just want to serve where you're leading. And we ask for your guidance in all our different contexts. We ask that you will grow these plans and that you will just show us the way to go. And I just thank you for all these people here. I thank you for what the teaching that we've heard. And I just thank you for all that you are, Lord Jesus. We praise you and worship you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you. Oh, I should have mentioned, I think I saw Rachel put it in the chat. It's hugely helpful to us if you can just spare a minute or two just to give us a quick bit of feedback, just because then we're learning what's most helpful to you as we're putting other things together. And there's more. Simon, do you want to just give us a quick update on what, I mean, I think you've all got your emails, but things you're working on for more forums and collaborations in the next few weeks?
Yeah, so we've got a few things coming up over the next couple of months. We've done a few of these now, a couple on mental health, a couple on family support, and one on food as well. For those people that were interested in the food supply one, Sam is reaching out to everybody and we're following up with you. Off the back of the mental health sessions, we're setting up something around befriending, which some of you may have remembered. So look out for communications on that. We've also got a session with Ariana Walker from Mercy UK, continuing the mental health discussion. And then also on different topics. So we're going to be starting a forum on modern slavery. We've got some contacts with a charity called Justice and Care who are really great and want to come talk to us and share. And there's potential for collaboration off the back of that. And then other ones we're looking to do are around debt as well. And I know some people from Love Your Neighbour Hubs are really keen to talk about different partners for debt support and the pros and cons. So those are some of the kind of things that we're looking into. Do look out for emails from us.
And do I think if you have other thoughts or things that you find interesting, of course, keep letting us know. I think the one on trafficking will be quite interesting. We're going to work somebody who's been working quite closely with the police, and the question is, how can we work well with the police in our areas? So anyway, there's so much more we can keep doing. But listen, it's great to see you all. God bless you in what you're doing, the impact you're having. We're praying for you, and we look forward to catching up. See you again soon. Lots of love to you all. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Everyone.